Nas, welcome back live from Cairo. Is that correct?
Yes, good morning.
Okay, what are you doing there, buddy?
I have some work. I am on a speech tour anyway throughout several countries. So I will be back in on the 20th in Texas.
Okay. What's the reaction in the Middle East to a red wave in the U.S.?
Well, they welcome it. I mean, generally
Okay,
speaking, people especially the governments of Saudi Arabia and UAE and Kuwait and etc. They were really fed up with the Biden administration. As you know, they had serious problems with the Obama administration before, especially regarding the war in Yemen.
yeah,
Uh, so they were fed up with that. And they were fed up with, if you recall, that President Biden came into Saudi Arabia. And I mean, he came in after a major feud with Saudi Arabia and the Arab countries. And he came in to give a speech. And instead of focusing on the main issues, as you know, especially the Palestinian issues and others, he was talking about
the
gay
journalist.
rights. He
Oh
was
my
talking about
gosh,
gay rights.
in Saudi
And
Arabia. Yeah,
yes, and
okay,
so the Saudis replied. The U.S. press did not really emphasize this point or cover it when they opened the session because they knew what he was going to talk about. Seems they were given the speech ahead of time.
yeah,
They opened the session with a phrase from the Holy Quran, basically regarding the gay issues, which is very strange in every diplomatic sense
yeah.
to start something like this. So they were really fed up and they welcomed Trump just to show you how good those relationships are. If you recall, about just a couple of weeks ago, Trump attended the day when there was this boxing match. There was a championship in New York where Trump attended this championship, and on his left there was Elon Musk, and on his
Yeah,
right the head of the PIF, the Saudi PIF, that the Public Investment Fund, Yasser Rumayyan.
yeah,
So even he is not in office yet, and the Saudis are on his right hand, on his right side.
yeah. That's happening
So they,
everywhere.
yep, yep, yep.
So let me ask
Anyway,
you this. I know we
go
want to
ahead.
talk about oil, but why don't we start with um, what effect the tool that we keep hearing about is, the hammer, tariffs. Tariffs, a non-factor when it comes to energy with this new administration, buddy.
No, it basically we'll be writing about it in our reports almost on daily basis.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you said, it's a hammer. It's really killing oil. And the reason why, because it's killing economic growth around the world, especially in China and Europe. And now, if sanctions basically, or we'll talk about sanctions in a minute, but growth in China, as you know, prevented oil prices from rising again. So those tariffs, although if we don't see any tariffs on oil imports or oil exports or anything else at all, they are wreaking havoc on the oil market simply because they are reducing economic growth all over the place.
They take more money out of the pocket of people that could be spent on energy,
And not only that, basically, because
but
they may not
company,
even collect much out of it, but they are scaring investors, scaring companies from expanding, scaring companies from opening offices in other countries. It just kind of all kind of things. But in China in particular, the engine of growth in China is being killed because of those trade wars, and
what's that?
therefore
Export? Their
China,
export?
yes,
Export business.
yes. So
Okay.
their stimulus did not work because they went for other sectors that do not yield that much growth from the stimulus. So we are not seeing growth in China, and that's leading to another problem because we are seeing several reports in the media and others saying that oil demand in China peaked because of electric vehicles and LNG trucks. And this is nonsense. Based on our studies, about 75% of the oil growth in China is related to economic growth, not to
Yeah.
electric vehicles or LNG trucks. So we do need that economic growth in China to see oil prices going up again.
Okay. Yeah. About oil prices going up with President-elect Trump coming in, deregulating, drill, baby, drill. Is that making people, I mean, if I ran an oil company,
We
I'd be a little hesitant to go out and spend a lot of money for development.
we did publish two reports along those lines. If you don't mind, I will frame the points. We have 3 points today. The first point is, can Trump increase U.S. production as they promised? They wanted to increase U.S. production by 3 million barrels a day. Drill, baby, drill, etc. So that's one report that we published last week. Then we have another one. Is Trump enforcement of sanctions on Iran bullish for oil? And I will answer that. And then we have
Yeah.
the OPEC Plus meeting tomorrow that Bloomberg and Reuters missed up completely in their reporting. So I think the audience will benefit from my comments today regarding
Cool.
this, because I'm correcting Bloomberg and Reuters. Let's start with the first one. Can Trump increase U.S. oil production as he promises and as he and his team envision? And the answer is no, they cannot. And there are several reasons for that. Trump and his team still live in 2016, and 2025 is not 2016. He came in to the political circle in 2015 and 2016 when we had a market crash, as you recall. Oil prices crashed in
Yeah.
2015. And
Yeah.
as a result, U.S. production declined by about 1 million barrels a day. Companies were losing money. We had many bankruptcies
Yeah.
at that time. So all he was hearing was complaints from the oil industry. And he promised to increase production, and he did. And we've seen major increase in production in 2017 and 2018. And he and his team think they can repeat that. The reason why they mentioned 3 million barrels a day just in the last 2 days, because the increase in 2017 and 18 was 3 million. So they think they can replicate that.
Okay.
But
Why
that's not
can't
the
they?
case. And they cannot for the following reasons. First, uh, interest rate was, we started with almost zero interest rate. Even after the increase in 2017, interest rate was very low.
Yeah.
Uh, and it is only a portion of the rate today. Today is multiples of where it was,
Right.
and the oil industry cannot operate the same way it was operating at that time. So that's number one, interest rate. The second one is, at that time, the number of oil companies and the number of workers in the oil sector was way, way higher than what it is today.
Okay.
And that's important because the shale industry was dominated by small independent producers and medium-sized companies. Now they are controlled by Exxon and Chevron. Why this is important? Because if you are an independent producer or a small company, your objective is to drill,
Yes.
find the oil,
And sell
increase
it.
reserves, and
Yeah.
sell it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So increasing production was the model.
Right.
This is not the model of ExxonMobil and Chevron.
Control production is their motto.
Correct.
They
Correct.
they become OPEC.
Correct. So we have major differences between that time and now, and therefore they cannot. Here is the last issue. I know this issue we can talk forever on this, but the last important point on this is this. He came in 2016 after the decrease in U.S. production. Now he is coming in after a massive increase in U.S. production, and the companies were making major, or basically record profits.
Right.
And as you increase production, the level of replacement because of the decline rates in the field gets larger and larger and larger, which means that most of the investment in the oil industry right now goes only to replacement just to maintain production.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
if you look at where we were in 2017 and where we are now, the level of replacement is double where it was. So yes, we can have drill, baby, drill, but it's barely just to maintain production.
So it's kind of like investor relations for a bankrupt company.
Correct. So that's
All right.
the second issue. The second issue
All
is
right.
we have some people who are bullish on oil because they think that Trump sanctions on Iran and enforcement of sanctions, because the sanctions are still there, but they say he's going to enforce the sanctions, and the enforcement of those sanctions is going to reduce Iranian oil exports by more than 1 million barrels a day, as it did in 2019. Again, 2025 is no longer, is not 2019 for the following reasons. Because Iran, when the sanctions were imposed in the fourth quarter of 2018, Iran was selling oil to about 20 countries, selling different types of crude to those countries.
Yeah.
Some of those countries were scared of Trump, so they stopped their imports from Iran. And
Okay.
then Iran itself refused to sell its oil to others because they can sell the oil, but countries cannot pay them. So why I have to invest in shipping the oil to you while I get nothing?
Right.
So they stopped. And that led to the decrease in Iranian production and exports. At the same time, after they signed the deal with Obama in 2014 and they got the money that been frozen, they decided to invest strategically in the new fields and close the older fields. And closing the older fields led, of course, to the decrease in production and exports too. Now they don't have those older fields anymore. At the same time, the quality of crude changed because when they stopped exporting to those 20 something countries, they shifted to China. China is the only customer right now. And the Chinese refiners said, look, I cannot take those qualities of crude. I need certain qualities. And the Iranians got stuck. So they had to close certain wells and close certain fields because of that. But later on, they invested only in the fields that produce oil that match what the Chinese want. So all
Okay.
the reasons that led to the decline in Iranian oil production and exports in 2019 do not exist today. At the same time, the payment system is not subject to the US or the European countries. So the US cannot control that. And therefore, it is completely out of the US control. Now,
Okay.
what the US can control, and that's what we explained in the report, the Chinese oil majors are listed on the stock exchanges of Europe and the United States. At the same time, they have access to capital from US banks and European banks. So they could be subject to sanctions and they could be punished. So that Trump has a leverage over those. And we've seen some reports in the media, but they were the wrong reports because they said, look, this is going to reduce Iranian exports. Absolutely not correct, because we've seen this before. This happens so many times in the past where the Chinese government will tell the oil majors, stay clean. And then they will tell the smaller independent companies who have no access to European markets or US markets and no relationship at all. So you cannot even pressure them. Tell them, look, go get me the Iranian oil. Once that oil is inside China, you give it to the oil majors.
Okay. So let
And
me
we've seen
just
it's,
I just want to address the fact that something Blake brought up. The fact WTI almost looks like a currency in us where they've controlled the volatility in it. They've taken it out of it, and we're really trading for a couple years now in a pretty tight range, and the ranges are even compressing more. So, I was taught never sell a sleeping market, and WTI's taking a nap in this range. What do you think is going to take us either down to 60 or break out over 80?
I'm going to
Or
finish. Yes.
okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted
Okay.
you.
So with the Iranian issue, here is where things could get really bad. People are bullish because they think that the enforcement of the sanctions on Iran is going to cause that breakout upward. But they forgot what happened in 2018. When Trump imposed the sanctions on Iran, prices declined by 29%. We had almost a crash in the market. So we have the opposite. And the reason why, because he did ask Saudi Arabia and other countries in the Gulf to compensate. So they did increase production, they did increase exports. And what the oil bulls have to be careful with right now with this, Trump will not, I'm going to speak slowly because I want to emphasize the point. Trump will not reinforce the sanctions on Iran unless he gets guarantees from those countries that they will compensate.
And will they?
And that is bearish. Well, the decision is completely political because
Right.
that's what happened in 2018.
Well, the
The
Saudis are sitting
bureaucrats,
on it. Yeah, the Saudis are sitting at his right hand side. So is that a done deal? They will compensate.
well, we don't know again because it's a political decision, and we've seen it before. The bureaucrats were against it, but the politicians basically decided to go with it anyway. So Trump sanctions on Iran could be bearish, not bullish. And related to that is the OPEC Plus meeting tomorrow. The media messed up the story big time because they are saying that OPEC is studying the possibility of extending the voluntary cuts to the end of the first quarter of 2025. OPEC Plus is one thing. The 8 countries that made the voluntary cuts within OPEC Plus are something else. They are completely different, in a sense, almost legally different. The meeting tomorrow is going to be virtual because it's non-eventual, has no impact, nothing. The biggest event is on the 10th, not tomorrow, where the 8 countries that cut production voluntarily will meet and decide what they are going to do with the voluntary cuts. So the media, if you look at Bloomberg and Reuters, etc., they are not making that distinction. Tomorrow is not the day to decide on the voluntary cuts, it's the 10th.
Interesting. Yeah,
Most
most
likely
people
we will
wouldn't know
see
that.
I am really fed up because Bloomberg and Reuters are misleading people on this.
All right. Well, we need
But
an El Haji report on this.
well, we do that in our daily report for those who would
Right.
like to subscribe.
Okay.
But the issue here is it is very clear from all the evidence we have that they are going to extend the voluntary cuts, but we have 2 problems, Iraq and Kazakhstan. And both of them are violating their quota. Both of them promised to compensate for earlier increases, and they did not. And what the Saudis did, this is something new, and it could be a very successful approach. They enlisted the help of the Russians. As you know, Russia is part of the OPEC Plus. Now, Russia was one of those countries that violated its sanctions, but they were able to compensate and cut production. If you look at their exports in November, they did cut exports by a significant amount, by 200,000 barrels a day. But Kazakhstan exports went up through the roof, and their production went up through the roof. So what they did is they brought in the Russians to the table to pressure Iraq and pressure Kazakhstan. And Russia has tremendous leverage over Kazakhstan. And the reason why, almost all Kazakhstan's exports go through Russian ports. So the Russia have control over the pipeline and have control over the port itself, which means that they can literally shut them down. So we expect that the Kazakhstan government will yield and do something before they get hit, either with a price war from the Saudis or the Russians doing something to the pipeline or to the port.
Okay.
So
Russia has
they
a
are,
lot of problems in different provinces. I don't know if Kazakhstan has been one of them, but Georgia and
Syria.
the ruble's getting killed. Why does it seem to the world that he's in a position of strength when his currency is severely under attack,
Well,
making record
it is really
lows?
about the control of a port. So this is a physical control
Okay.
of the spigots. So they can do that without any problems. I just would like to add Syria to the mix
Yeah,
because the Russians
great.
just lost the northern Syria,
Right.
and They are, for the last 3 days, they'll be bombing civilians in those big cities in northern Syria.
Yeah, the Russians. Okay, well that
So
that was their tactic. What 10 years ago when they stepped
correct.
into the vacuum. I want to ask you if Trump doesn't see sanctions being effective, is it possible he
He's not going
gives
to
a
see it that way. He is going to, using his own words, basically, is going to be the most powerful and the most beautiful.
okay, well then is it possible that he gives a go light to Israel to take out Carg Island so that the U.S. has a larger percentage of market share
No,
and his
no,
friends?
I don't think so. I think he always claimed that he is anti-war and he does not want the expansion of those wars. He wants to stop the war in Ukraine. He wants to stop the war in
Well, why do you
Gaza.
be- why do you believe that when you don't believe other things he said
I mean, you have a
that
great
aren't going to
point
work?
there, but the issues here is that there are things he cannot control. For example, when we talked about Iran sanctions, he cannot control it because of the reasons I mentioned. But in
Yeah,
case of Ukraine, he had the leverage because the U.S. been sending billions of dollars and arms and weapons to Ukraine. He can stop that. He can pressure Israel to stop the war in Gaza. So it depends
yeah,
on where he has the tools,
yeah,
and he had the tools to stop the wars. He has no tools to, in fact, if you want to expand on this, yes, he has tools to literally strangle Iran, but that requires a massive amount of political capital to coordinate with other countries, including China. And with the trade war, it's very hard
yeah.
to see that working.
There's no cooperation coming there. Do you
Correct.
think? Yeah. Okay,
Uh,
so what's going to take us out of this range? Do you have a narrative that's going to give us a reason to trade crude? Because, when things are like this, it's just range trading. There's no trend. Will we get a trend in WTI in 2025, buddy?
Based on what we have right now, based on all the information we have, and as you know, these things could change overnight. This is the trend you are going to see throughout the year.
Oh my gosh,
Tight,
I'm
tight range, and
all right.
we see prices for Brent in the 70s, WTI in the high
Okay,
60s, low 70s, and that's it. There
okay,
is no hope for China for now. Those trade
okay,
wars are really killing demand, and OPEC is plus, and those V8 or the 8 countries are going to maintain voluntary cuts as is. So I want to look at it from a positive point of view. I want to look at this low volatility and continued range as a success for OPEC plus policies.
okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, we don't have the same interests. Traders want movement.
Correct. I agree with you. Correct.
So, right, and central banks, when they get this kind of action in their currencies, they're happy. That means they don't have to tweak anything. But so
Absolutely.
what the takeaway on trading WTI is that I can be Rip Van Winkle and go to sleep for 2025 and wake up out here, and it's still going to be a $70 price on WTI, right? I could take a 1 year nap.
Correct.
All
So,
right.
and unless if we end up with a trade deal with China, that's going to be very positive for WTI.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, gosh, I mean, Brave New World starts. Are you optimistic about everything, Anas? You feel good or worried going into 2025?
I am very worried. I mean, looking at what's happening in Syria and
Syria?
Georgia
Yeah.
and South and North Korea.
Yeah.
Sorry, South Korea.
South Korea?
Uh,
Yeah.
South Korea, correct.
Yeah.
They have the martial law and all these
Right.
issues, etc.
Right.
And looking at what's happening throughout the Middle East, it's very hard to be optimistic.
Okay. Realistic Anas El-Haji giving you the facts and also telling you how he feels about what's going on over there. But you make business decisions based on your head, not your heart.
Absolutely.
And Nas El Haji, Inshallah, my brother. And
Inshallah.
always great talking to you. And people were looking forward to hearing you. And have a great trip abroad and safe journey home to you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a
All
great
right.
day.
My friend Anas El Haji coming here and sharing his hard work with us once again. So that's a wrap. People are thanking you, Anas. You're a favorite
Thank
here.
you.
And everyone else, you could go ahead and join the team in 18 minutes on the Morning Edge. That's a wrap. Good hunting the rest of the day. See you tomorrow. Don't just count your pips, count your blessings. Thank you, everyone. And thank you from Hamas. Adios.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with ForexAnalytix. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.